I'm going to start with my 7 squared. That's my A, right? Next I'm going with, so 7 squared, that is my A squared, plus my B squared. We don't know what that is, so B squared equals C squared. C squared we know has to be 19. 19 is the longest side. If we use this as our A, that means when I solve for B, it cannot be the longest side. It cannot be more than 19, and we have to square that. So you want to use your calculator, 49 plus B squared. What do we have 19 squared being equal to as you put that in your calculator? What did you get, Brett? 361. We're going to subtract 49 from both sides. Next year when you get into algebra about this time, you'll be working with quadratics like this, which are square ones. B squared is equal to how much, Ava? 312. I need to find what B equals. To get rid of the square, I take the what? Square root. Usually we think of it as being plus and minus. Square root of 312. In this case, since we are dealing with distance, distance is going to be the positive only as we look at this answer, and we should have approximately what when you put it in your calculator? 17.6 if we were looking at it. This would be my approximate answer. If on the test, the end of the year, that final, I ask you to leave it exact, that's going to be your square root that we are looking at. Okay? So, if I am looking at yours, that is what I should be doing as we're looking at your homework. Right now, I would like you to turn to your homework. And we also are going to be starting kind of a new stuff, but if we are looking at this, so as you look at this one, questions? Questions on our homework at all? As I'm looking at yours. Now, here's the deal on your quiz that I handed back. And this is what I'm noticing in the homework is people are not showing me the new points. And what I mean by the new points is you are simply looking or kind of trying to figure out, you write down what it is, but you don't actually show what you are doing. And that is causing some problems on the quiz. So, if you are looking at, we had 8 and 9 for questions. If I am looking at number 8, first off, I need to know which figure is your first figure that you're starting with. It does not specify, correct? So, if you are doing in either 8 or 9, I need to know, are you starting here and going here? Meaning, when you do the first one, I should probably see like G prime, H prime, I prime, okay? If you're starting with this one, then I'm going to see the first thing that you're doing being L prime, K prime, J prime, correct? I need you to draw that. That's where I have a lot of people get points off on their quiz. You didn't do that very well. I couldn't tell what your picture was. So, if we are looking at this one from G, and if we look at triangle and we say, okay, we think these triangles, G, H, I, is congruent to triangle, what's in the same spot as G? What letter?
J.
Looks like J. Now, I noticed to go from G to H, I'm going 3, 1. So I cannot go this one. It can't go from G to H. It has to go J to K and then to L. Does that make sense on the letters going around the figure? Okay? So when you look at that, that is going to be key to how we're looking at this. Now, if we start with this one, and I'm going to match these up. First thing, from G to H to I am going around this clockwise. If I go from J to K to L, I'm going counterclockwise, right? So what do I know I have to have because the orientation changes? Has to be a reflection, right? There has to be a reflection. Some of you are going, oh, but I want to rotate it. You probably can, but somewhere in there you're going to have to do a reflection. So let's do our reflection first. Do we want to reflect over? And I know sometimes these are hard to see, so sometimes you might want to outline your lines a little better. My y and x axis. Which one do we want to reflect over as you are looking at that? Anyone have an idea? If I'm looking at number 8, which one should I reflect over? 8. If I reflect over the x, so I'm going to bring it down. And as I do that, if I bring it down, I don't even necessarily need you to list the points, but I notice that I is 3 away, so I'm going to go down here, and this is going to be my I prime. And that's what I was talking about in the quiz that I didn't see for some of you. G is 1 up. I don't necessarily need you to list all the points, but I need to be able to see where did you draw that new figure. So here's from G to I, and H was 1, 2, 3, 4. So on that same line, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I have H prime. So I now have this triangle. Is that going to get me where I need? What do I have to do now to get it so that G matches up to J? What does it look like I'm going to have to do to G to get it to J? Looks like I'm probably going to have to. So our first thing was we reflected over the x-axis. And our second step looks like we are going to do what? Rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise. Now, this is where I might check the points. So I might put down, oh, G prime is located. G prime is located at negative 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 1. Where do I need the new point, if this is G prime, where do I need that new G double prime if I'm doing 90 counterclockwise? Well, counterclockwise says, take these points, right? If I'm going counterclockwise, take my x, y, and it now should be the opposite of my y, which is 1, negative 4. 1, negative 4. It matches up perfect. I don't have to do any more, okay? So I can see where that matches. I need you to do that work. If you didn't do that on number 8, this is what I need to see when I'm looking at the problems. Because when I'm looking at yours, the answers are in the back of that, and they kind of give you exactly what you have to do as you are looking at those. But, and I agree, this one, number 4, was really weird, and some of you might not have pictured the 1.5. And I agree, we won't have one like that on your test. The test is looking that it'll probably be next week. We're pretty much done with the unit by the end of this week and next week. So hopefully next week we will be looking at, but we have 2 scuba days in there and then some other stuff. So it might not be till that following week. Here was your quiz. And I want you to take a look. If you got a 4, this is what I'm thinking. You're at that advanced level. You can always do this. You have a pretty good grasp of this. A 3, you're proficient, but you're not quite there yet. A 2, partially proficient. If you have a 2 or a 1 on your quiz, you should be coming in to see me to make sure you're understanding this, okay? When I look at this quiz, if I would have seen that you reflected over the x-axis, right? If I was looking at a reflection over this axis, so I look at my x-axis and I go, oh, here is point A, prime. Here is point C, prime. Here is B, prime. And if you didn't mark these and you just drew it, I had some people do this one. I had other people say, you know what, as I'm looking at this, here is H prime, here is F prime, and here is G being up here. Now, if you did this blue triangle, and you said reflected over the x-axis, then your rule for translation is different, right, than if you did this one. This one, the translation rule would have been, oh, I'm going to go x minus 3 and y plus 1. If you did this one, and I don't know which one some of you did, you just said reflect over x and translate. Well, I have to mark it wrong, right? I don't see the new picture. I don't care which one of these you did, but I need to know how you move from one figure to the next. Does that make sense to everyone, if you're looking at it? If not, make sure you come in and see me with yours, okay? All right, so put those 2 things aside for right now. and I want to look at your notes. I put these grades in, or I was in the process of putting them in. I think I got third hour in. I haven't got any other classes in. So they should be in. Those of you, if you haven't turned it up through H12, those are zeros that are in the grade book. I probably, if I'm still missing work from some of you shortly, I'll probably, instead of emails, be looking at log entries. So if you know who you are and you know you just haven't turned anything in for a long time, get busy. Get to work. Come in and see me if you need to. All right, so we're switching gears kind of. The rest of this unit, if you take a look at the notes in 15, we have angles and congruence. Turn back to the next unit. You're going to see more angles and congruence in 16. Then talk about triangles with similarity, and we are done with the unit. So there's really 3 more units or lessons left as we look at this. Supplementary angles. You guys had this last year some. Supplementary angles is when 2 angles sum to 180 degrees. Whereas if we are looking at complementary, so start filling in your notes, please. If we are looking at complementary angles, that's when 2 angles sum to 90 degrees. Nice way to remember those 2 things. Complementary comes, the word C, complementary comes first in the alphabet. We should be smaller, right? Complementary is 90, supplementary is 180. I always have to keep students getting those ones confused. If we are looking at a straight angle is going to be 180 degrees, and right angle is going to be 90 degrees. Most of you already knew that, okay? So, if it helps you to draw pictures of these, as you are looking at this, supplementary angles, as long as I have 2 angles, if this angle happens to be 70, the other angle has to be how many degrees? 110, because the 2 have to total to 180. They could be right next to each other, being adjacent angles, but they do not need to be. A lot of times I'll have students say, doesn't it have to be a picture like this in order for it to be? Like if this is 60 degrees, then this is 120 degrees. Yes, it could be like that, but they do not have to be right next to each other, right? If we are looking at 90 degrees, a lot of times you're going to see that symbol for a right angle. And if I have something like this and I have this is 30 degrees, then the other one I know has to be 60 degrees. And that the 2 need to total to 90. So on this picture, I want you to give me a pair of supplementary angles. And there really is, if I'm looking at this, there's 2 options that you have for supplementary. And there's only 1 option for complementary. List the numbers. When we list the angles, we put that angle symbol in front. So when you are doing this, this would be angle and angle. There are 2 options for the first one. Talk with your shoulder partner right now with which ones you think are supplementary. There's 2 options, complementary, 1 option. Avery, Danielle, give me a supplementary pair. 5 and 1. Did anyone have a different pair other than 5 and 1? What else could I have had? 5 and, could have had 5 and 2, right? Angle 5 and angle 2, right? It could be this way a supplementary or it could be this way a supplementary, right? They total to 180 degrees. My only option for complementary, Adam, what do you guys have back there? 3 and 4. Okay? Those are my only options when I look at those 2. Now, a lot of vocabulary, and I put some of these already up on the Google Classroom for Quizlets to practice, but transversal. Transversal is the line that intersects 2 or more lines in distinct points. So this line T, this is called our transversal. Please write that right by it. That line T is called our transversal. When they're naming a line, a lot of times they put a letter next to it. So this is just line L and line M. Line L and M in this picture are not parallel. So then we talk about corresponding angles. Corresponding angles lie on the same side of a transversal in the same spots. So if I was looking at this picture and I wanted to give a set of corresponding angles, I would say angle 1 And in the same spot down below would be angle 5. Now in this picture they are not congruent, but if our lines are parallel, they will be. So please, 1 and 5. So if I was looking at 2, I want you to tell me, and then angle 3, what is it going to correspond with, and angle 4. So with your shoulder partner right now, I want you to tell me, I said 1 and 5 corresponding. So 2 and what? 3 and what? 4 and what? Write them down right now. Check with your shoulder partner. They have to be in the same spot, same position with those 2 lines. So 1 and 5 was my first one. Layla, give me what you guys had for 2. 2 and 6. 2 and 6. Put the angle symbol in front. If you haven't done the other 2, do them right now. Check with your shoulder partner that you agree. I'm going to have you look for 2. Actually, you do that. Okay? All right. So, Sage, what do you have for 3? 3 and 7, and Carmen, 4 and 8. The next type of angle is vertical. Vertical are 2 angles whose sides form 2 pairs of opposite rays. So, 2 angles, like angle 1 and angle 3. Angle 1 and angle 3 are vertical. So when I look at 1 and 3 being vertical, I also know angle 2 and which one? 2 and angle 4. Give me 2 more pairs. Now, the nice thing about vertical angles is these 2 angles are almost always going to be congruent. Congruent means that they are what? What does the word congruent mean when we were working with our figures? Same
shape and size.
Shape and size. And this one is just going to be the same angle measure when we talk about it. Grace, tell me what else you had. Angle
5 and angle 7.
Angle 5 and angle 7. And we should have one more pair, which should have been 6 and angle 8. Okay? Those are all vertical. Okay? Next one. Alternating interior. Key word here, interior. They even colored it interior and exterior. So if I look at angle 1, so angle 1, alternate exterior, angle 1. Angle 3, we'll go with. Angle 3 is on the interior. Alternating signs of this line, but on the interior. So 3 and new. 3 and 5. So it can't be right next to it because what do we know about 3 and 4 together? They are what from the last page? 180 supplementary, right? So 3 and angle 5. Now, if the 2 lines are parallel, these will be, quit turning around, just stay facing the front. All the way facing the front. There you go. So if we have 2 parallel lines, which we will in most of our assignments, these will also be congruent. In this picture, they're not because the lines aren't parallel. So angle 3 and 5, angle 4 and angle 6. What do we know about 5 and 6 together? They're supplementary, right? 6 and 4 are going to be the same. So if I know one of these measures, I can find all my other measures. It's a beautiful thing. So angle 1 with angle, what do we think? Angle 7. Angle 2 and angle 8. And again, if the lines are parallel, these are not, these will be congruent, okay? So all these different types of angles, corresponding, vertical, alternate interior, alternate exterior, they're all actually congruent angles if my 2 lines are parallel, okay? Vertical doesn't need 2 parallel lines, all the rest of them do. So it says when parallel lines are cut, so as you take a look at this, cut by a transversal. What do we notice about the 2 sides of the parallel lines? It says if you cut this diagram in half, the dashed line, and translate it to the left or to the right, what do you notice about our angles? So if I would do that, and I would take this, and I have these angles, and I take and I move this picture. And I move this over, right? And I am moving this picture, let's see if it's going to let me do that. That one on top. That goes exactly on top of those two angles, which tells me, if I'm looking at this, that these two will be congruent, okay? If I look at this next one, so if we cut them, what are we going to know? Corresponding angles, please write down, are congruent. Now, I am okay that this word congruent, remember the symbol, equal. So what that means is that angle 1 is congruent to angle 5. They correspond, they're in the same spot, they will be the same measure, which is wonderful if we're only given one measure. In this one it says if we reflect over this dotted line, what do we notice? So if I would reflect this over, what are we going to notice about these two angles, 2 and 4? If I would cut the line this way, what would I know about 1 and 3? They match up exactly. So if we are talking about vertical angles, please write down, vertical angles are congruent. Now, one way I have students remember vertical is that they have to make that V shape, right? So that's my V shape. Either way, when I make that, these two, it's like a double V when I'm thinking about that, okay? The last one that they talk about is what do we notice about different types of angles if in this transformation for 2 and 7. And what we want to take a look at is if I take and I flip this around, right? So if I rotate this, how many degrees? 180, right? And then I slide this, what am I going to notice is happening? Is that the one alternate exterior, right? So 2 and 2 are going to be the same. 1 and 1. Those measures will be exactly the same when I'm moving those, okay? So if we are taking a look, what transformation is going to make that 4 and 5? 4 and 5. Find out which transformation are 4 and 5 going to be congruent. And as we look at that, right, and it kind of helps you if I move this like yours was, you notice that 4 and 5 are going to be corresponding angles, so they are congruent. What transformation moves it? We reflected and translated, right? So, we rotated our 180 degrees, and then we translated it up. That's how they got to be the same. We did a rotation of 180, then we did a translate. So just like when you're doing all your figures in your homework and you're trying to get those triangles to match up, same kind of stuff that we are looking at, okay? So on this next page, what we're going to do is we are simply asked to find the missing angles. I don't know that we're going to do the video that takes 2 minutes and 51 seconds. We'll kind of look at that towards the end of class, and we might do that afterwards. It says, because the two lines intersect and have a transversal, we're able to find many congruent angles in this diagram. Use what you know about congruent angles to find the 7 angles that are congruent. So, if I have 55, what do I know about these 2 angles? What would you tell me the name is from 1 to 55? What kind of angles are those, Sophie? Looking back at your definitions on the other page, back 2 pages before. Corresponding vertical, alternate interior, alternate exterior. For 1 with the 55. They are vertical. So if I put angle 1 with the 55 degree are vertical, that means this has to be 55 degrees, correct? What do I know about angle 1 and 2 together? Or angle 2 and 55? What kind of angles are those? 2 and the 55. What do we know from the first page of our notes? Go back even further. What kind of angle? What do we know about 2 and 55? They have to total to how many degrees, Kayla? 180. They are supplementary, right? So supplementary to that 55 degrees. So I'm gonna take 180 to get angle 2, 180 and minus 55, right? Which gives me,
125.
careful, 180 minus 55, what'd you have? 125? And we're gonna do the degree symbol, yes. 125, right? Now, what's nice about that is, can we find angle 4? If we know 2? 2 and 4 are vertical. So these two have to be the same. When you take a quiz on this unit, you're going to notice that your angles are either going to all be one number or the other one. Now, I'll have people come up with like 5 different numbers for theirs. It can't happen if you have 2 parallel lines. This little symbol right here, this triangle, is trying to tell you that these 2 lines are parallel. So now we're going to go over to angle 5. Where does angle 5 and 1, what do we know about angle 5 and angle 1? They correspond, okay? So this corresponds to angle 1, which means 1 and 5 have to be the same, which is 55 degrees. Right now, I want you to fill in the rest. Check with your shoulder partner if you're not sure. What should our other angles be? It's either going to be 55 or 125, right? Please fill yours in if you haven't already. Check with your shoulder partner to see that you got the same answers, right?
And 125.
So 125 for 6, because they are supplementary. Please make sure you put in that degree symbol. 55, 5 and 7 have to be the same, they are vertical. And 8 is also going to be 125 degrees. Nice job as you were doing that. Most of you were able to do that pretty quickly. This one says, find the measure of angle 1. When you do measure of an angle, you put this little M up in front, then you put angle 1. And now you're going to tell what it's equal to. And then it says justify your answer. That means make sense of it. Now, if I'm looking at this picture, angle 1 is not the easiest one to start with, right? So I might look at angle 4. Still not too easy, the measure of angle 4. And so you don't always necessarily have to do them exactly in order, okay? Angle 8. I'm going to start with 8, right? These 2 lines are parallel. That's what this little marking tells me right here. So the measure of angle 8. What do I know about angle 8? If I was just going to look at this part of my picture down here. If I was just looking at this, what do I know about angle 8 and this 105 degrees? What kind of angles are they? Look back at your definitions. They are not supplementary. Is it going to be 105 or 75?
75.
So look at how it's open first off. 105, where are these 2 located? They are between my 2 parallel lines, so this is the interior, right? What's our one with interiors? Alternating interior, angle 8 must be 105 degrees. Why? Alternate interior, to write this down so you aren't writing 105 degrees. Now, if I know that one, I now, since I know this is 105, it's going to be easier to find 4, right? What do I know about the measure of angle 4? It has to be 105 also, because Braden, why?
Because it is the same as number 8.
And what kind of angles are 8 and 4 together? Special name. I need the name.
They are parallel.
So where angle 8 is down here, and where angle 4 is, I want you to look back at the definitions and that table that we had a couple pages ago in your notes. Down here. Correspond vertical, alternate interior, alternate exterior. That's what we're looking at. Which one? From 105 to up here.
Wait.
We just found these.
Corresponding.
Corresponding. So the reason we can justify our answer, angle 4 corresponds to angle 8. And the measure of angle 8 was equal to 105 degrees. So they have to be 105. So I now know this is 105. And now is it much easier to find the measure of angle 1, right? So I didn't do them necessarily in order. Maddie, what do we know about angle 4 and angle 1 together? They have to total to how many degrees? They're along that straight line. Look back in your notes, the very first thing we did. Have to be how much? Thank you, Grace. 180. So what does angle 1 have to be? 75 degrees, right? Angle 1 has to be 75 degrees. Why does it have to be 75 degrees? To justify our answer, it is supplementary to angle 4, and I'm going to put in front of that angle 4 the measure of angle 4, which equals 105. So that what we had to do was take 180 and minus 105 to get the 75 degrees. Some of you still weren't writing, put it down. Make sure you put it down. The justify. So we are now looking at angle 1. What do I know about 15 now? So I kind of worked backwards, right? I did 5, 4, 1. Now I'm looking at the measure of angle 15. The measure of angle 15. What do I know, Carmen? 75 or 105? What do you think? 75. Why? How is 15 related to, if we wanted to, back to angle 1 or one of the other ones? How is it related? Do we have a special one with 1 and 15? Daniel. 1 and 15, what kind of angles?
Alternate exterior.
Alternate exterior. So some of your homework, I don't ask you to tell me why it is, but in this case, if they ask you to justify your answer, we're going to say alternate exterior to angle 1, and the measure of angle 1 equals 75, so the measure of angle 15 is 75. Or equals 75 as you're looking at that. Questions on how you can go from 1 and finding all of those. Now, I have had students make up flashcards before, and when they made up flashcards, they put, similar to how we did all of our reflections, they made that picture, and they put the 2 parallel lines, and they said, these angles are alternate interior, these are vertical, these are alternate exterior. So drawing that picture maybe on that flashcard that you have for the first half of this unit, as you take a look at your homework tonight. So it says use the diagram, and usually they are going to tell you that your 2 lines are parallel, or that your 2 streets, right, are parallel. This is the transversal. So they're going to ask you, how are 8 and 4 related? That's going back to the definition. What kind of angles are 8 and angle 4? You're not even asked to find the measure. It just says, how are they related? So that means the names of them, right? So as you are working on this assignment, those of you that didn't turn in 12 or 13, you want to make sure you get that done. And there was a lot of you that turned in 13, and you really didn't draw the new figure. And I'm telling you that on the test and on the quiz, I need to see that, okay? So you are going to finish this one. The reason some of these assignments get really long, like page-wise, is because the pictures, right? I have to draw all these pictures, and each one of these takes a lot of space when you're trying to find them. They're not that hard of problems. Usually your 2 answers are either going to be like 138 and then 180 minus 38, right? So you're just going to find 2 numbers, and you should be able to see those relationships. I am going to